What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Rough Drafts. My name is Sam Pratt. If you haven't joined me before, I go really deep each week on various specific topics in the current limited format. And today, just like last week, is going to be another kind of grab bag episode. I'm going to plan to talk through what to do with all of the allied color pairs today, and then also go through a lot of the rares. So I'll also make a note that we have an arena open coming up 17th of May. Before I was writing the notes for this show, I was planning to spend some time talking about best of 3 in preparation for the open. Just personally, I play both best of 1 and best of 3 pretty equally. I like to hit mythic and best of 1 and then swap over. So I think I actually have a lot of interesting things to say about the differences between best of 1 and best of 3. But as I was starting to write notes out about that, I realized there was so much information that I wanted to get out that was kind of more broad than Tarkir in general, that I think I can fill an entire episode just with that. So I'm going to have 4 more episodes, including this one, before Final Fantasy releases. And I think it's going to be the grab bag this week. Next week, I'm going to go kind of big picture and talk best of 1 versus best of 3. And then I'm not sure, maybe we'll do 2 weeks of Final Fantasy preview stuff, maybe 1. I don't know. We'll see. So next week, I'm going to talk about best of 3. I know it's coming after the open, but hopefully that episode is a little more evergreen. And I think it's important to still say as specific as I can before I move into that stuff. So, yeah, gonna just be talking about Tarkir cards today, and let's jump in. So I want to talk about the allied color pairs today. For those who don't know the terminology, the allied color pairs are, if you flip a magic card over, you could see the colors are in white, blue, black, red, green order. The allied pairs are the adjacent ones. So kind of the ones that make thematic sense together, blue and white, red and green, etc. Just some structural things about the format. I'm sure most people listening know this, but I'll just go over it to be precise. Tarkir is a wedge set, which means the enemy pairs are the ones that are seeded. So that means like black, white, blue, red, which means there are no allied colored gold cards in the set. Like there's not a blue, white card in the set. However, this is a 3-color set, not a 2-color set, as opposed to something like Strixhaven or Guilds of Ravnica, which have a subset of the 2-color pairs, not the 3-color pairs. So when you build an enemy color deck in Tarkir, say you're white-black, you get those 2 black-white uncommons, and then you also get access to either Mardu cards or Abzan cards. But when you're drafting, and let's say you know that you're Mardu, like you have like good Mardu cards, if you decide to be base black-red, which is the single allied color pair for Mardu, the only thing that you're missing out on is potential gold uncommon. Now, the gold uncommons are good. Like if you build black-red instead of red-white, you're missing out on Frontline Rush, which is a great card. But you still get to play like a Sonic Shrieker in a black-red deck, for instance. Because you can still just splash the white out of black-red instead of splashing like black out of red-white. So really, if you build allied color pairs, you miss out on just the 2-color uncommon cards, the enemy colors. And then you also miss out on, say, if you're blue-green. A lot of my blue-greens decks will play like both Teamer cards and Sultai cards, so you can branch in 2 different directions. You're a lot more inflexible with allied color pairs, but like the end result of the deck isn't missing that many cards. Like you're not missing out on that many things because the 3-color cards can all still be played in certain allied color pairs. So a lot of theory, but I love this kind of like structural stuff about this set. So I think it's cool. And I think it's worth keeping in mind that you're not really giving up that many cards by deciding to build a base allied color deck. So specifically, I'm just going to go through each of the allied color pairs, and I kind of have them grouped into buckets. So the first bucket is blue-based control. And if you're allied, you can be white-blue or blue-black. So these usually, I'm in white-blue a lot more. Basically, if you've ever built a Jeskai control deck, the structure of those Jeskai control decks is often like blue counter magic and red interaction. And white gives you a great piece of interaction in Osseous Exhale. So if you're like a Jeskai control deck and you get past a bunch of Osseous Exhales instead of a bunch of Molten Exhales, that's a totally fine place to be. You can still splash your red cards. You can still play like some Glacial Dragon Hunts. You can even splash like Molten Exhale. It's going to be fine. So I've been like base blue, white, Jeskai control quite a bit. Blue-black, the associated clan with blue-black is Sultai. And I think this is a less good place to be for a blue control deck because a lot of the Sultai rares lend themselves more to green strategies than blue strategies. So something like the Sultai Saga, I won't read it out, but it mills cards and that works better with like the green renew stuff. But I think that a base blue-black control deck is a very good place to have your base for your like dragon soup decks. So you're playing like blue counter magic early, you get Caustic Exhale, which is an incredible cheap removal spell. So if you're kind of doing like the Dragonstorm soup like globe deck, I actually think blue black is a pretty good place to be for that. Moving on to the second bucket of allied decks is green stompy decks. So this would be green white or green red, talking specifically about the green stompy decks. And I've talked about these a lot. Nothing new here. There's like green red stompy, green red tricks. If you're a green white deck, you can just be like a very perfectly normal Magic the Gathering limited deck, just playing cheap creatures, good interaction, good curve. Like something like Bearer of Glory, which has first strike, works really well with green's counters. Like Pack Beast is a very good beatdown card. So you also get to play like Abzan rares that go late. So if you're in like green or maybe you're in white and you get past a good Abzan rare, you could very happily be a base green white deck to support that. So yeah, don't shy away from either of those. And then the last allied color pair is black red, which is something that admittedly I have not done it. I actually just got back from a paper draft where I was drafting kind of in the Mardu space, and I'm kicking myself because I realized in hindsight, there's a lot of hindsight here, but I definitely could have and I think should have been a base black red aggro deck. So what is like the base black red aggro deck? Like you're in the Mardu space, but you're base black red. I think it's like an aggressive mid-range deck, like something like Shock Brigade into aggressive negotiations. Like Shock Brigade is a great place to put your aggressive negotiations counter. I think this is a great place to leverage worthy cost. You still get to play Sonic Shrieker, which is an amazing mid-range card. Yeah, I think you can look at this a lot like white red, just a little less aggressive, but you get better interaction in like Dragon's Prey, Caustic Exhale. Aggressive negotiations is probably fantastic here. So yeah, I'm kicking myself for not having drafted this immediately previous to recording this, but yeah, it's something I have my eye on for sure. All right, and that's going to wrap up the section on allied color pairs. I've drafted a lot of like blue-white control, green-red beatdown, so definitely something to keep in mind and keep in your wheelhouse for certain drafts that go a certain way, where one color is really open and it kind of pairs awkwardly with what else you're getting past. There's definitely ways to leverage these allied pairs that I think are very, very strong and just as good as the enemy pairs. So moving on, I'm going to talk about rares. So this is going to be a very similar vibe to last week. Last week I went through a bunch of individual commons and uncommons and talked about them, like things that I had not mentioned on the show previous. I think I've mentioned this previously on the show, but I think rares are a pretty important part of limited. Probably don't get talked enough in the content creation space, especially with play boosters. Like you get into the decks for rares. A lot of times gold rares especially gets passed late. And it's important to know which ones are good, how to use them, what sort of deck you want to build to support them. So I love talking about rares in limited because if you draft the format 50 to 100 times like me and are absolutely addicted, you get a chance to play with a lot of the rares. So first up, I'm going to do something a little fun, a little silly. I'm going to rank the sieges. This is something that I was streaming a little bit last week and it came up and I was ranking them and my friends got mad at me. This is my ranking of them all. Number one, I would say, is Windcrag Siege, which is red-white. This is the one where you make a goblin with lifelink and haste every turn on your upkeep. And then also has another mode that you never choose. I was very skeptical about this card. A lot of people tell me it's good. The data tells me it's good. It performs significantly above average in Boros, which is very good because Boros is already really good. And I've had it in my deck quite a bit, and I often don't lose. These go wide decks, building a wide board for free over time Especially if you have go wide payoffs like War Effort. You really leverage the material, and it is a very good source of inevitability against your opponent who might be slightly behind. So this card's great in a good deck too. Second, I would put Hollow Merc Siege, which is the green-black one, that the main mode you choose is whenever you attack, you get a 1/1 counter on a creature that's attacking and it gains Menace. I think this is very, very strong in the green-black counters beatdown deck. And I think if I get this late and I'm in green, I will try to pivot into that space because that is often underdrafted, especially if you're getting a late Hollow Merc Siege. Not something I'm taking early and forging my way into. And I also think that green-black counters just in general is not like a top tier deck, which is why I have it below Windcrag Siege, but it might be better for those decks than Windcrag Siege is for a Boros deck. So definitely second place for Hollow Merc Siege. Then it gets a little fuzzy between the next two. I would put Glacierwood Siege, the blue-green one, in third. This is the one where the mode that you always choose is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, your opponent mills 4. Quarter Calls, limited level ups. Alex has a video explaining this card. It's great. You should go check that out. It's a very cool build around. I think it's a pretty good build around. You can get a bunch of stuff going with Unending Whisper. Its strength is in that it's a build around. It's not a generically good card. The win rate on it is going to be horrible because people are just going to put it in random decks. If you have 2 Auroral Processions, that's the blue-green instant that regrowths something. You can Auroral Procession your Auroral Procession. Say that 5 times fast. And that is perpetual triggers for this. So you just get to kind of fireball your opponent's library based on how much blue and green mana you have. So yeah, very, very good build around. I actually haven't done it, but I've lost to it. Yeah, very solid. In fourth place, Frostcliff Siege. This is the blue-red one. I think this is the one where the modes that you pick are very split, and it's definitely split between the decks. So one of the modes is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. The other mode is your creatures get +1 trample and haste. I was envisioning this going in as a build around for the first mode. Like you really want like Jeskai Monument, cheap flyers like Sun Pearl Kirin, or stuff like Wingblade Disciple that can make a bunch of cheap flyers. Basically, if you have cheap flyers, the Coastal Piracy mode, that's just like whenever you deal damage to a player, draw a card. That's going to be great. And I think that is something you can do in blue-red. I have lost to this quite a bit out of like green-red or green-blue Stompy with the second mode. Like +1/+0 trample and haste is no joke. Like that is very strong. The reason it doesn't perform very well is because like that's a dead card if you're on the back foot. But getting like 6/5 Mammoth Bellow tokens, getting a 5/4 trample haste Sagu Pummeler. Yeah, very, very good in those kind of stompy decks. Just make sure you have enough like big creatures. And then in last place, this one was very controversial. Barren Step Siege. And the mode you pick on this one is at the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. This is the black-white one. First of all, I think this goes in a pretty bad deck in black-white. It requires you to already have creatures and build a wide board. I think if you have a wide board already and are consistently good at building that, I think this card is pretty good. But this asks a lot of your deck, and it goes in a deck that already is not good. So I think this is still a good card if you are in the right deck for it. I don't envision that happening a lot. And even if it does, there's a lot of times where you have like 3 creatures, you get counters on all of them, and then you just die to your opponent's dragons. Flying creatures is such a big part of this format, like singular flying creatures, and sometimes the Anthem mode like just doesn't really get the job done. So that's my 5th place. I know people disagree with me on that. I'm standing firm. So yeah, that's my ranking. I thought that would be fun. And also the sieges, I think they're all pretty good in the right home. So I wanted an opportunity to talk through them. Moving on, one really quick note. The card Dragonologist, which is a 3-mana 1/3 in blue, where you look at the top 6, you get an instant sorcerer dragon, and then also dragons, untapped dragons you control have hexproof. This And another card, Ambling Stormscale, which is like the Ward 2 turtle that when it attacks, it gets 3 stun counters and you draw 3 cards. If you can combine these with Synchronized Charge to give your creatures vigilance, so with Dragonologist, you give like your big dragon's vigilance, or Stormscale, you give itself vigilance, so the stun counters don't matter. Specifically like Synchronized Charge, that's a really good interaction. So very small note, I've done this a couple times with each of those cards. Very good. I love Synchronized Charge in general. So yeah, keep that in mind. Teamer Battle Crier. This is the 3 mana 4/3. Your spells cost 1 less for each creature with power 4 or greater you control. This is not a great card to pack one, pick one because it's very narrow. But if you're in a green-red or green-blue stompy deck, this is an absurd card. Like if you can play this early, you can start getting your Champion of Dusans down to 1 mana. You can use those to cast other disgusting things. You can harmonize your spells for really cheap. Yeah, this card is very absurd in those kind of narrow homes. One card I get pretty late is Lotus Light Dancers. This is the 5 mana 3/6 lifelink in Sultai. And when it enters, you get a green card, blue card, and black card out of your deck into your library, into your graveyard. I get this passed to me pretty late. If I can cast this, like if I don't have to go out of my way to cast this, I think this card is very good. It's not hard to just have like an Unending Whisper to drop into your graveyard, like a Champion of Dusan, or you can even just get your worst card out of your deck. Sometimes that's relevant in really grindy games. Yeah, I think this card is great. If I can cast it, I'm going to take it and play it. I just wanted to mention it because I've gotten it like on the wheel quite a bit, which probably shouldn't happen. Another 3-color card, Thunder of Unity. This is the Mardu Saga. When it enters, you draw 2, lose 2, and then chapters 2 and 3 are whenever a creature enters under your control, drain 1. Stats on this are awful. You should not be splashing this in your good aggressive Boros decks, but I actually think it's very good in the grindier kind of go wide token mid-range like black-white or even black-red decks, or even some Boros decks if you're like grindier, more like interesting in casting like Sonic Shrieker or something. So yeah, definitely don't pick this one highly, but if you're in that like token mid-range space, I think this card is great. One last rare that I have actually not put in a deck, but I've seen some people do cool things with is Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. This is a land that taps for colorless, or you can add a mana to cast Dragons or Omens, and then it also has this 4-tap sack, search your library for a dragon, put it into your hand. I think that last mode is actually not great. You really don't want to be sacrificing your lands in this format. The tap for any color of mana to cast Dragons or Omens can be pretty useful if your mana is already good. That can be pretty useful to cast off-color Omens. So I've seen this in like a very good like base white deck that had a bunch of Mardu devotees, and they were very white, but they were using that Maelstrom to either splash the roast half of Twin Maw Stormbrood or the dragon half of Purging Stormbrood, which is like the 4/4, but it has like the white combat trick. So like I said, I have not played this card yet. I've not taken it and put it in a deck, but I've seen some cool stuff with it. That sacrifice mode also is way more relevant in aggro decks than control decks, because your aggro decks are less hesitant to sacrifice one of their lands. But if you are a control deck with already great mana and a lot of dragons, you can totally play it there too. Moving on to some mythics. One that's really interesting is Stormscale Scion. This is the 6 mana 4/4 dragon with other dragons you control get +1/+1, and it has Storm. This was not on my radar at all as a good card, but the top player stats for this card, like the data for top players, is really good, like surprisingly good. It's pulling at about like a B+ level, whereas like for the whole user pool, it's like a C+. So what makes this card good? I'm not 100% sure. I'm assuming you play it in like a dragon soup deck, as a top end, as just another dragon, because it really does. If you can get like 2 storm triggers, you even really only need 1 storm triggers. Like you kind of treat this as like an 8-drop kind of like Craterhoof Behemoth that can just kind of win the game out of nowhere. Like if your opponent just has removal spells, it's making multiple dragon bodies. So it's really good in the face of that. I think you just really need to be like a hard control deck or a soup deck. And I'll point out that you probably want to play the Tiger, the 5 mana 3/4 that adds Wooburg. That's a great card to storm into this. And also just Unending Whisper is probably great with this too. Like the cantrip. So definitely one that was not on my radar as a good card, but I think I would take this decently highly. Like if I was drafting in the Arena Open. Because it is just kind of like an I win button in a lot of matchups. Rot Curse Rakshasa. This might be my favorite design of the entire set. This is the 2 mana 5/5 with Decayed and Trample, and then has a renew ability to decay your opponent's creatures. This is another one I could have mentioned last week talking about a couple of cards that were better in best of 3. This is another one that is so good against green decks in best of 3. First of all, you don't mind a creature that can't block and can just kind of like lightning axe them in the early game. Sorry, lava axe them, not lightning axe. And then the renew mode, when your opponent has only a few creatures, that's just like killing multiple creatures. So like you're not under a lot of pressure. You can let your opponent's creatures hit you and die. Like you can afford to take a hit from them. The decayed mode is going to be like very, very strong against those decks. Like it basically just destroys them. So it's horrible against Boros because it doesn't block and it also doesn't prevent the damage from the attacks. But so I would like board it out there. But against like mid-range dragon decks or green decks, I think this card is very, very strong. Death Begets Life. This is the 8 mana Sultai Wrath that draws a card for each creature that it destroyed. I don't know how to say this. I get bad vibes from this card. Like I've taken it a couple times because the data on it is pretty good, which tells me it's a card I should be taking pretty highly. But it's really in an awkward spot with Sultai's central color is green, and it's really an awkward spot in green decks because you want to be playing creatures in green decks. So I think if I was going to take this card early, and like if you open a rare like this in the Arena Open, I'm very inclined to just take it and see what you can do with it, because like locking in power like that is really valuable in higher level draft pods. I would be wanting to play this in a Dragon Soup deck where you're playing orbs and singular large creatures, and your opponent hopefully has more creatures than you and you're good at extending the game, or just like a blue control deck. Like if you can, I don't want to call it Jeskai control because this would be a double splash, but if you're in, like I said, like a blue-black control deck, you could definitely see splashing the green on here. You know, you can get very creative with your mana in this format. This is a card that would lead me towards a control deck, whether that would be like soup or like blue counterspell. Teval. This is the Sultai Mythic Dragon. It's a 5 mana 6/6 lifelink flying. Your spells have delve and you lose life equal to the mana cost of your spells. This card, I think people are scared of it because the kills you when you cast spells is hard to read, but like 6/6 flying lifelink, like that comes down, often gets a hit in, buffers your life total, and then your opponent finds a removal spell for it. Like that's very good. It's just very overstated. You really want stuff that you can cast with 1 mana to protect it or do something with it the turn it comes down. So you like save it for turn 6 and do these things. So I'm talking like Snakeskin Veil, Riverwalk Technique, which has the negate mode, and you can delve cards out of your graveyard to cast that for 1 mana on turn 6. Other counter spells, you know, like Spectral Denial, Dispelling Exhale also work for that too. I just found that like Riverwalk Technique is very good with this because you can also cast the other mode. And then if I have this card, I'm really on the lookout for Piercing Exhale, because a lot of times against the aggro decks, like they're going to have their removal spell on their turn, the turn that you play Teval, and you're not going to get the life gain. But if you can set up a turn where you play Teval and Piercing Exhale for 1 mana with the delve on turn 6, the turn it comes down, then you've guaranteed 4 life because you've lost 2 from Piercing Exhale. but you guarantee like get to kill something and gain 4 life, which is a very good stabilizing play. It's like a 5 mana 6/6 dragon that gains 4. And then if they can't kill it, it just runs away with the game. So yeah, if I've had Tevel quite a bit in this format, and I'm always on the lookout for things that can protect it and stuff like knockout maneuver or piercing blow where I can get the life gain the turn it comes down. The last card I'm going to talk about very briefly is Smile at Death, which is the 5 mana white enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and they get 1/1 counters. I've not played this. I have played against it a couple times, and I've lost to it quite a bit. It's a build around. You really need a lot of power 2 or less stuff, and you need to be the kind of deck that will be like grindy, like not the Go Wide Boros deck. So that's very niche, but it's really strong if you can like grind the game out with your cheap creatures. So I remember the decks I lost to were playing like Underfoot Underdogs, which come with a body and it becomes a 2/3. Kin Tree Nurturer, which can make like a 4/3 lifelink when it comes down, or like make 2 bodies. And then stuff like Sun Pearl Kirin, which can make like a strong flyer that you'll have to kill. So definitely a weird card. I don't fully grasp how to use it. I've lost to it enough that I think it's real, but pretty niche and pretty hard to build around. So if you, listener, have built a good Smile at Death deck, I would love to see it because I think the card's really sweet. Very quick note before I wrap up. I'm recording this as I'm editing. I forgot to mention that Stormscale Scion, the Storm Dragon, has Storm, which counts your opponent's spells. So if you're playing with that card, it's probably best to maybe attack with a creature and play it post-combat in case your opponent casts something during your combat phase, and then you get an extra dragon off their Storm trigger. The other thing I forgot to mention is that Death Begets Life also destroys enchantments. That is a very easy thing to forget, and I want to warn people ahead of the arena open so that they don't accidentally blow up their Stormplane Detainments and lose $2,000. And that's going to wrap it up. Like I said, next week, I think I'm going to go deep on kind of a broader topic of what I think the differences between best of 1 and best of 3 are. And then after that, not quite sure. We're going to figure it out as we go. So yeah, if you have any feedback, if you want me to talk about something, if you want to say hi, you can find me on Blue Sky at sampratt.bsky.social. You can find me on Discord at SamP6, and I stream very occasionally at twitch.tv/SamP_MTG. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.